Welcome to Real Judaism with Rabbi Klapper. Unfiltered wisdom for Jewish life.
Okay, we are here on Daf Kuf Tes Zayin. You know what? Maybe we'll start the Amud before, just so we won't start right in the middle of something. Right? We finished off last week. We were talking about the Ketores. So let's start off from there because it's right in the middle. And we mentioned last week that the Ketores, there isn't anything specific about the Ketores with a parallel to Shabbos per se, right? We discussed there's shulchan, a Shabbos table. There's a menorah. There's the lights we light for Erev Shabbos. There's the special clothing in the Beis HaMikdash, special clothing on Shabbos. There's the kedusha of the food. We discussed many different things. The Lamates Malachos are the parallel between Shabbos and the Beis HaMikdash. So now, in this discussion about Ketores, is there anything specific, any specific din on Shabbos that you're supposed to have Ketores? You're supposed to have a good smell on, like, is there a special din like that? So there isn't necessarily, but the idea behind the good smell is that a good smell makes a good atmosphere. When you have a smell, that's why we mentioned in the Medrash last week, that smell, it represents the shalom between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We said last week the mashal of the king who got very angry at his queen, and they made up, but there were still rumors that he still didn't want her and he still didn't like her. How would the people know that he had made up with her? And they said, if you make a special smell coming out from the queen's house, and you know that's the way. That special smell shows the good feelings that's happening. So that's what we want on Shabbos. That's what we're trying to create on Shabbos. The Shechina is coming into our homes. So if the Shechina is coming into our homes, we want to have that good atmosphere, that good smell. So that's where we got to the top of Kuf Tes Zayin. We're going to start there from the second paragraph. Hinei hashalom bayis ein inyano rak shelo yeh meribas b'Shabbos. We were talking about having that good atmosphere. Shalom bayis. There should be peace in the home. That's not just that there shouldn't be fights. No fights. How do you know that there's good shalom bayis? There are no fights. So you have two very cold people who have no relationship with each other, who don't talk to each other. They don't scream at each other either. So that's called shalom bayis? No, that's not called shalom bayis. Shalom bayis is not just about not having fights. Ela afilu kas de kedusha b'mokom mitzvah ein zman b'Shabbos. Even if this is a good reason to get upset. It's a good reason. Even a reason for a Kodesh reason to get upset. It's not the place on Shabbos. It's not the right thing to do on Shabbos. It's not the right time. K'moshe kosuv haramak, Ramoshe Cordovero, al derech hasoid, hu atak lishoino lemata b'hagor. On the bottom, he brings he talks about how specifically on Shabbos and Yontif, during Tefillah and Talmud Torah, these are special times of Kedusha that a person has to stay away from kas. Stay away from any type of anger, even if it's a good type of anger. I'm just going to quote from the very last line over here. This is a direct quote from the Tomer Devorah, the Sefer of Ramoshe Cordovero, the great capitalist. Lachein tzarech ha'adam biyomim tovim v'shabbosos biyom ha'kippurim b'shas ha'tefillah v'shos eisek ha'torah. A person has to be very, very careful, specifically on days Yom Tovim, and specifically on Shabbosim and Yom Kippur, and when he's davening, and when he's learning Torah. She'enon shos ha'gvuros ela shos goli ha'rotzon. It's not a time of gvura. Gvura means strength, but it also represents midas hadin. It's not a time of midas hadin. Rather, it's a shos goli ha'rotzon elyon shelekoinen da'asenu b'midos ha'elu kulam. That it's a time to show the megala, the real ratzon of Hashem. Obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu also has the midah of gvura, like we say every day in Shemona Esrei. Hakel hagadol gibur. Gvura is also part of that. But really, the ultimate ratzon of Hashem is to give. Hashem is olam chesed yiboneh, like it says in Tehillim, Parak Pei Tes, I believe. Hashem really wants to give. We'll talk about this when we get later on to the parak about Oineg Shabbos, that the real Ratzon Hashem is always to give us everything, to give us every single pleasure. So this is not a time when we're involved in such a high level, such a kedusha, learning Torah, Yom Kippur, davening, Yom Tovim, Shabbosim. Person has to stay away from that midah of vura and has to embrace rather the shalom bayis, rather it has to embrace the feeling of connection and not the feeling of limitation.
Every time we're learning Torah, though?
What?
Every time we're learning Torah.
When we're learning Torah, we're connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, learning Torah...
There's no real time that we're allowed to be angry.
That's right, because we have to be learning Torah all the time.
Yeah.
So my Rebbe told us about the Baruch Ber, whenever he needed to get angry at a Talmud for something that the Talmud did wrong. So before he would give whatever musar or get angry, he would excuse himself for a minute and he would go into the other room and he would put on a special hat. And that was a kas hat. He put on the hat and he gave it to whichever Talmud it was that he had to give it to. Then he went to the room, hung the hat back up, and that was it. And that was the end of the whatever kas it was. It shows that he had complete control. Really, kas is anyways only supposed to be kas upon him. It's supposed to be a superficial. It's not supposed to be inside your heart. A person should never, this is a very high madrega, but a person should never feel kas in their heart. Rather, if there's a need to show anger, it should be only on the surface level, because sometimes you need to show your displeasure in something that's being done. But person shouldn't feel that kas. Now, that's what we said. That's a very, very high madrega. So when can you? We're supposed to be learning Torah all the time. So when could you possibly ever use kas? Right? It's a good question. Well, there are times we don't learn Torah. What? That's true. But wait a second. People go to work. How do they work? You should have to be learning Torah all the time. How do you go to work? How do you do that? Right? How do you sleep? You shouldn't be sleeping. You have to learn Torah all the time. How do you sleep? So Elamai, what Torah is the national pastime of the Jewish people. Now, what does that mean, the national? In America, the national pastime, as far as I know, of America is baseball. Now, what does the word pastime mean? Pastime means that when you don't have anything else to do, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing. I don't have anything else to do. Let's play baseball. The national pastime of the Jewish people is learning Torah, which means I don't have anything else to do. I'm learning Torah. That's what I'm doing. Now, there's an inyan of being kovei itim l'Torah, means that even when I do have things to do, I'm still going to make time for learning Torah. But really, when it comes to learning Torah, a person is allowed to go to work. HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up people in a way that you have to put in hishtadlus in order to make parnasa. That's the klala that was given to Adam Rishon. You have to work in order to make a parnasa. That's the curse that all mankind were accepted when Adam Rishon ate from the Eitz Hadas. So is it called bittul Torah when I go to work? No, it's not called bittul Torah because I have to do that. I have to. Since I have to do that, it's not called bittul Torah. If I have to sleep, that's not called bittul Torah. The Chavetz Chaim says in Sefer Chavetz Chaim that when a person speaks Lashon Hara, he's also over on bittul Torah. Why is he over on bittul Torah? Because you didn't have to speak Lashon Hara. That you didn't have to do. So that time that you're speaking Lashon Hara, you could have been using to learn Torah. And that's why you have bittul Torah during that time. But a person has to work, and it could be that during those times that he has to do things, he might come to kas. Now, obviously, kas is always never a good midah. It's never a good midah. But if a person's going to put in more effort in one area, like I think we mentioned in the past, there's a whole inyan, it's become more popular nowadays, Baruch Hashem, about machzon lefi, taking on a certain amount of time to be makpid on not speaking Lashon Hara. Right? I'm taking on 1 hour. This hour is my hour. I'm not speaking Lashon Hara, and during that hour, what do you mean? And the other hours you can speak Lashon Hara? No, it doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is that I'm going to make an extra special effort during that time. And that's good. That's a wonderful thing. So yeah, nobody should ever be over on kas. Kas is a terrible thing. But on Shabbos, we have to be extra vigilant. We have to be extra vigilant. We need to have that shalom bayis in our homes. We need to have that good atmosphere, that good smell. So back into the second paragraph on the top. I think one of the earliest shurim I mentioned this, that the Zohar brings from the Pasuk. The Pasuk says, Lo sivaru eish b'chol moshvo yiseichem b'yom Shabbos hainu eish shel kas. The Pasuk is very interesting because it's the only malacha that's actually written in the Torah, lighting a fire. So they ask a question. The Gemara discusses why of all the 39 malachos was Eish mentioned, making a fire, Mavir? Why was that mentioned of all the 39 malachos to be mentioned mufurish in the Torah that you can't do on Shabbos? Oh, is it to say it's mechalik, or maybe it's not really one of the 39 malachos? But here, the Zohar takes it to a completely different understanding. The Eish over here is not referring to the lighting of fire of the Lamatet Malachos. Rather, it's talking about the fire of anger, the fire of kas. V'zeh loshon tekuna Zohar. Zoka iu denote l'Shabbos, delo itkarev taman itzivut, titchol v'ka'as demar iu nura de gehenim dala. Itmar lo tavur eish b'chol mosh v'yiseichem b'yom HaShabbos. Right? The person should need to know, loosely translated, this means that a person needs to guard the Shabbos. So make sure that there shouldn't be any sadness or any anger, because that will create a fire of Gehenna. That's what's going to happen. And we mentioned in the past, I forgot who I quoted in the name of, but a person who gets angry on Shabbos will lose his Neshama Yisera. The Neshama Yisera that a person gets on Shabbos will only be there if he doesn't get angry. The Neshama Yisera can't handle kas and will leave.
For that week or per week?
No, I think only for that week, right? Mm. Yeah, we can always try to get it back, right? But we're going to talk about the Neshama Yisera Be'ez Hashem also when we get to the parak on Oineg Shabbos. But this is a scary thing, you know. We don't necessarily understand what it means in Neshama Yisera, but we're certainly not ready to give it up. Right? We're special on Shabbos. We have something special inside us, and we're going to lose that. Somehow, though, all these tests happen on Shabbos. All the major kas tests that a person has, the anger tests happen on Shabbos. Why does that happen? Because the Satan knows exactly what he's doing, and he doesn't want you to have a Neshama Yisera, and he doesn't want you to have shalom bayis. It's a good eitzah, by the way. It's a good eitzah. Chazal tell us that no, but a similar idea is that the Satan does know that Erev Shabbos is a tremendous time of stress, especially in these early Shabbosim. This coming Shabbos will be the second to earliest Shabbos of the year, with a candle lighting at 4:00, only 1 minute earlier the week after. It's early. Now, we have a little bit of a reprieve because it's a late year. Hanukkah is further on in the year. But sometimes when Hanukkah falls out around this time, so not only is it so early, but you actually have to start even earlier so you can get Neres Hanukkah in too. So this could be an extremely stressful time. And you know who knows that better than anybody else? The Satan. The Satan knows it better than anybody else. And because of that, he's there to make a ruckus. He wants to do that. I believe it's the Gemara in Gittin that says that it was Dafka the Satan would come to certain houses, a certain house in the neighborhood of Rabbi Meir, in order to make shalom bayis problems, until Rabbi Meir able to work things out between the couple, and the Satan was very upset. He said, Rabbi Meir threw me out. It's an eitzah toiva, an eitzah Torah on Friday morning shachris to daven, Hashem, please save me from the Satan today. Please don't let the Satan run wild in my house today. At least, maybe you can daven already Thursday night. If you really want, you can daven the whole week for that. But at least Thursday night, Shabbos morning, please, Hashem, don't let the Satan run wild in my house today. Don't let the Satan ruin things. Don't let the Satan ruin shalom bayis. Because it's very easy. The Satan, all he has to do, there's an expensive vase sitting right there on the corner. He just does a little, he pushes one of your kids or your wife against it, and all of a sudden you've got all this broken glass and water and all over the floor. And this one starts crying, and that one blames the other one, and pandemonium breaks out, and all because of what? And the Satan's sitting there on the side laughing. Ha ha. Daven to Hashem, we should be safe from this. Is it happen? Of course it happens. I'm sure everybody has tons of these types of stories. Why is it always on Erev Shabbos that A, B, and C happen? Why?
We're home.
Because we're home, right? We can make a, why why all the kids are fighting on Friday night? Because that's the only time they're actually all sitting together at the table, if they're sitting at the table at all, right? That's the only time. So of course that's why they're the Sultan knows how much kedusha there is on Shabbos. He knows that the Shechina's there. He knows the malachim are coming to give you a bracha. Their stakes are high. He's not interested in you getting all that stuff. So he's going to do whatever he can to get it out of you. That's why you have to daven for help. You have to daven for help from Hashem, because how in the world am I going to beat this? How am I going to do it? Especially after last week and the week before and the week before. Like, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to beat this? Daven to Hashem for help. Daven to Hashem for help. Mashma shahaya minhag kodum lefazer reich toy bayis b'Shabbos kodesh. There once upon a time there was a minhag. Again, maybe it's not halacha, but there was a minhag to sprinkle a nice smell. Get some air freshener or some kind of perfume on Shabbos or before Shabbos. Excuse me. Oh, maybe it was Shabbos. Maybe it was on Shabbos. Mesechus Shabbos it bring Eitel Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, when he came out of the cave, he met a man, an older man, who had 2 hadassim, and he was bringing them home. It was Erev Shabbos. He was bringing them home. Mefarish Rashi, chavilo shel hadas la'ariach b'Shabbos. He had the hadassim, and I believe one of them he said this is for Zohar and this is for Shamor, because he wanted to have a good smell. That was the whole thing about hadassim, is that they make a nice smell. Shoshana zu, the meaning of a rose. What's it for? It's for a good smell. Shoshana zu mitukenet l'Shabbos v'yamim tovim kach Yisrael mitukenet l'gu'ulas machar. So the whole point he brings of roses is to make a nice smell on Shabbos. Obviously, it's not just the smell, but also it's the feeling, the good atmosphere. That's why many people buy flowers to bring home for Shabbos, because it makes a nice atmosphere. It makes a nice smell. It's a very nice thing. And you see already from Chazal that there are source for these minhagim. Let's finish the parak today. The last 2 points of the connection between the Beis HaMikdash and Shabbos. Mitzvahs moira mikdash, the fear of the Beis HaMikdash. The Mikdash haisa mitzvah d'oraisa shel moira mikdash. Dichtiv es Shabbos tishmoru mikdash yitiro. The pasuk says that you should fear the Beis HaMikdash, but it goes together with Shabbos. The pasuk first says Shabbos, keep Shabbos, and fear my Beis HaMikdash, fear the Mikdash. Came b'Shabbos matzanu moira Shabbos. Shigam ala aretz lo mishaker b'Shabbos. Amaret lo mishaker b'Shabbos. So you see, there's a certain fear. We discussed this way back. There's a fear of Shabbos. There's a fear of Shabbos. And we said back then, what are you scared of on Shabbos? You're scared of the one who made Shabbos. But we see that there is a connection to Shabbos itself, that the person has an actual fear of Shabbos. Kemosha Amru, Emas Shabbos Aleh. That Amaret has ne'emanus. We trust, even though generally we don't trust an Amaret with regards to Trumas and Maisros, which is a person has to take off from Demai. Maisros, not Truma. Truma, he is ne'eman. But Meiser Sheni has to be taken off again, because we don't trust him. On Shabbos we trust him. If he says something on Shabbos, we trust him. Vishita Yireim he Shemoyer Shabbos he mitzvah min Torah. Fearing Shabbos, according to the Sefer Yireim, is a mitzvah d'oraisa to fear Shabbos. Mimad echtiv es shafto zay tishmoru mikdashiv tiro kayal tarbayu. The word fear, according to the Sefer Yireim, is going both on the Beis HaMikdash and on Shabbos. We're going to discuss in the next parak, hopefully we'll maybe even get to start today, the idea of what does it mean what is Chilul Shabbos, and maybe this will give us a better understanding what it means, the fear of Shabbos. But back in Chelek Beis, I believe it was, when we were discussing the fear of Shabbos, we were talking about how the idea behind the Yichud of Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, shows how Hashem controls everything. And because Hashem controls everything, and everything can only be done as a Ratzon Hashem, so Hashem has the ability to use certain tools in order to reverse things that were done against His will. And that should give a person a pachad. It should give a person a fear. because a person should be scared. How could I possibly do anything against Ratzon Hashem? There we discussed at great length that it's impossible to do anything against Ratzon Hashem. And if a person does do something against Ratzon Hashem, eventually it will get reversed. How will it get reversed? The best way that it could possibly get reversed is through tshuva. If a person does tshuva, so that's the best way to reverse something that he did against Ratzon Hashem, because this way he brings more Kiddush Hashem through tshuva. I'm not going to go through all the pratim, ayin, sham, and that parak, but one of the main places of fear is that by one of the ways of returning back to Ratzon Hashem is through some kind of punishment. Through punishment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the ability to reverse a ma'isa that was done. And that should cause a fear to a person. Meaning, it's a wonderful thing, actually, to get a punishment, as much as we don't enjoy it and as painful as it is. But it's a wonderful thing because it cleanses a person and it makes that the ma'asin that they did that was against Ratzon Hashem, now it goes back and becomes Ratzon Hashem. Can't explain the whole thing right now why this is true. You have to go back and hear that shir. I think it was number 20. I was just doing Chazal on it now recently also. But there is a certain aspect of fear because that's what Shabbos represents. Shabbos represents Hashem is control of everything. And therefore you cannot do anything against Ratzon Hashem. And since you can't do anything against Ratzon Hashem, Hashem has ways, and sometimes those ways are scary and painful in order to reverse. And that's where the fear of Shabbos comes from. We're going to talk about it more Be'ez Hashem in the coming parak. Now let's finish up the last Nakuda over here that he brings, the connection between Shabbos and the Beis HaMikdash, Yud Aleph. The Mikdash haisa mitzvah shel shira al karbonos. V'chem Shabbos kodesh. On Shabbos and in the Beis HaMikdash is an idea of singing. We're going to have a whole parak about this. We're going to see a whole parak about singing on Shabbos. The Minig Yisrael takes chashivas miuchedet l'shira l'zimra. We sing on Shabbos. It's part of what we do, starting from even before Shalom Aleichem. Kabbalah Shabbos, l'chadoidim. Mitzvah, I don't know, mitzvah, that many, it's a minhag in economy, but it's been around already for a long time. Kabbalah Shabbos, Psuki de Zimras is longer. There are certain pizmonim we sing in Shachris, and certainly all the shiros, v'tishpochos that we sing at the Shabbos table, starting from Shalom Aleichem, Eishes Chayil, and all the Zmiros that great people have written, including the Arizal, who wrote Zmiros for Shabbos. Great people who wrote these Zmiros, and there for sure there's an Inyan. We'll have to talk about it a lot more when we get to that parak, because now is not the right time. It is going to be in a couple chapters. We'll get there. That the specialness of what singing gives us. B'chol hasudas noigim Yisrael b'zmiros Shabbos. Every suda has different songs. Each one has their own song. Each meal on Shabbos has their own specific songs. V'chein betfila psuki de zimra. Your tosefes zmiros are extra parakim tehillim. It's called psuki de zimra. The psukim of song. That's what they're saying. We sing extra. We're going to talk about this in a future parak in much more detail. Lama miyuchat Shabbos kodesh le'inyan shira. Why is Shabbos special with regards to song? We're going to start the next parak ches. Oynish chilul Shabbos. This is a very fascinating parak. I'm not all the parakim are very fascinating. This one's a little bit shorter, so we'll start it this week, Be'ez Hashem, and I hope we'll be able to finish it next week. Chilul Shabbos is an incredibly severe avera. It's incredibly severe. It's of the top oinshin in the Torah. It's very interesting because we're putting Chilul Shabbos on a higher level than murder in terms of the punishment for a person who does it on purpose with witnesses. Or a person murders on purpose with witnesses, the punishment for Chilul Shabbos is greater than the punishment for murder. It's an amazing thing. It's really, why is that? It's on the level with Avodah Zarah, the worst of error in the Torah. Avodah Zarah, Chilul Hashem doesn't really have a specific punishment, but Avodah Zarah certainly does. And Chilul Shabbos, it's a Chiyav Skila. So wow, what's so chummer about Shabbos? Why is Shabbos on such a high level? That such a strong punishment. Min ha'inyanim hamiyuchadim Shabbos kodesh. Mikol hamitzvot shebeTorah, ma shekol kach achmira haTorah ba'onesh chilul Shabbos. It's incredible, something very special, that it's so severe. Hu be'emes davar nisgav. Sha'al, it's a very interesting idea. Sha'al chilul Shabbos chiyuv misa. That there even is the death penalty for somebody who's Mechal Shabbos. Again, in order to be Mechal Shabbos, in order to be Chayav Misa, you have to have done it in front of two witnesses with a proper warning beforehand, which means they're telling you, if you do this, you are going to be taken to Beis Din, and we're going to try you, and you're going to get the death penalty if you do it. And the person understands that, and he does it anyway. So we're not talking about somebody made a mistake or whatever, and he's doing this very, very willfully, knowing that it's wrong. Even a very, very small thing. Person who burns a Sefer Torah does not have this, is not on the same, doesn't have the same punishment. Or is somebody who eats all kinds of usher things. The guy sits down and eats the most disgusting things. Electric eels he eats. He eats bugs. He eats pork. He's not going to get the same punishment as a person who is over on Chilul Shabbos b'mezid, even if he's eating these foods on purpose. That these foods they stuff up his heart, and he doesn't have the holiness leaves him by a person eating this. Chilul Shabbos is a worse punishment. It's the highest level of the death penalty. Shechiv skila, person's chayiv skila, stoning. It's more severe than murder. This is a wonder. How could this be? So let's try to do one more paragraph. I'm going to stop over here. I'm sorry, it's a bit of a cliffhanger over here until we get to the answer. But let's at least start to see if maybe we can start an answer, or maybe just continue the question. The beginnings of the answer is to understand, like we've discussed in the first two halakim of the Sefer, that Shabbos is the foundations of Emunah. Like we discussed in the past in the parak of Emunah and Chelik Beis, what is our avodah on Shabbos? What are we supposed to be doing? What? Right? We know on Pesach is a Chag Geula and Shavuos is Kabbalah Sator. What are we supposed to be doing on Shabbos? We're supposed to be being mechazik our emunah. We're supposed to be remembering HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from nothing. And if he created the world from nothing, that means there's only Him. It means there is nothing else. We're being mechazik our emunah in the yichud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu has power over everything. That's what a person is supposed to be doing on Shabbos, because that's what Shabbos represents. Shehi zeicher l'maaseh bereishis, shalav oimer hakol. Right, as we say in Kiddush, zeicher l'maaseh bereishis. We're remembering that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. That is our emunah. Aval be'emes hamoichik shem kodesh or asilo asoyriv sefer Torah shalom. And what if somebody erases Hashem's name, chas v'shalom, or he actually burns a sefer Torah, Rachman al-Tzlan, chayv malchus v'lo misa b'klaum? That same person is what a bizoyon to the kedusha to Hashem. Well, isn't that also being pogeya in emunah? Isn't that also being pogeya in the oneness and the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by doing such terrible things to His name and to His Torah? And yet there's no misa for that. Person does such a thing, it's the biggest kfira. And yet it's only malchus. So why are we so much more machmir when it comes to Shabbos? We can't really 100% understand this. We still have to, in terms of our own hashkafa, try to understand why is it that Shabbos is so unique and special. And we're going to have to leave it with this question, and Be'ez Hashem next week we will answer this question. Koach.
Thank you for joining Real Judaism, where we explore Torah's wisdom for real life. Created by J Foundations and produced by Eli Podcast Productions. Find more episodes at realjudaism.org and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.